Hello, everyone. It's just about 7 p.m. You just see we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we have a quorum now. See here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we do have a quorum. Larry is with us, but I think with the timing, we've agreed that I'll be starting the meeting. And so first of all, I would like to call to order this meeting of the advisory committee. And we will first start with the approval of the minutes from February 3rd. Tony, if you're online, thank you very much. Great job on the minutes. And I believe that everyone's feedback was taken into account as far as any updates. So if there are no more comments, I recommend that we move forward voting those minutes.
So moved. Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis. Well taken. So Tony, again, great job on the minutes. Larry, since you've joined us now, we are pretty much done with the minutes. So,
okay, I think we just take a roll call just to affirm the. We should take the vote on the minutes.
Oh, perfect. So, Larry, where do we have your vote also on the minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Of course, Bernard. Yes. Jack?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian? Hello, Brian?
I don't think he's on.
Oh, okay.
I
Sharon?
don't see him. Yeah.
Tom? Dennis?
Yes.
Okay, Brad, I think we see you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Larry, I think this is everyone that
Okay.
I think to see.
Okay. Well, all right. Thank you, Bernard, for helping me out. I was running late, and
I will give the minutes a yes as well if needed.
So I guess the first department to meet AdCom tonight is the Board of Health, and I just want to welcome Matthew Brennan. This is his first time at AdCom. I think Matthew, you could probably unmute your phone now. You're good. And then Matthew, I think you mentioned some of the board members, some of the Board of Health members are attending this meeting tonight. So I just want to welcome them if they're somewhere here. So
yes, I do believe we may have some attendance from the board members, but again, thank you for the invite, and I'm glad to be here.
This is your first year, so
yes.
we'll be nice to you. So the show is yours, all yours. Go ahead.
If possible, I would like to share my screen. I do have a very small presentation for you guys.
Okay, let me see if I can. Geez. Okay, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, this is week 3 for me here at in the health department. So some of this we'll go through is just kind of an introduction about the health department, and the actual budget was done by Chief Kelleher prior to my arrival. So these are some of the things that he put together. He may be on the call as well. I'm not sure. But if he is, he may jump in at some point.
Matt, I am here. So if you need anything, just holler.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. The goal of the health department is to prevent disease, protect public health of our citizens, protect our environment, and to be prepared in times of public health emergencies. Since 2020, the health department's most important role is to protect and control diseases dangerous to public health, such as COVID-19. The rise of COVID-19 caused a state of emergency within Massachusetts, which gave local health departments the authority to track COVID-19 cases, isolate and quarantine infected individuals, and enforce all applicable governor's orders to stop the spread of the virus. Now, on top of that, we do have other routine services that we do provide the public. So we continue to inspect local residences and businesses throughout the town. These are some of the licenses and permits that we do inspect or permit for residences and businesses. We have animals, cottage foods, which is residential kitchens, domestic wells, fats, oil, and grease, which are grease traps within restaurants, food establishments, hotels, motels, cabins, milk, pasteurization of milk, plan reviewed establishments, that is new restaurants. So anything that is brand new to the department, what we do is we do a thorough plan review to make sure that everything meets the code. And I don't know, we can keep going through them, but camps and septage, Title V, tobacco, you name it. So, that is some of the background. And these numbers actually don't even include the Gillette Stadium and the establishments that we have in there as well. So there is a lot going on. Now, the 2022 operation budget request, in order to do everything that we do, we have a full-time director of public health, full-time assistant health agent or sanitarian, a half-time assistant health agent or sanitarian, and a full-time public health coordinator. You can see the salaries here. Basically from 2019-20 through 2022, they're just incremental increases, just for step raises and other things. Expenses, those are incremental too. The budget isn't, there isn't much fat to the budget. I have it lay out in the next slide, but there are no significant changes from 2020, 21, 22. It's been just slight increases. Here's the breakdown of kind of the expenditures of the health department. The biggest one is educational opportunities. There are, being a health department, there are a lot of different educational components of the job. Employees are want to become, we have one employee that wants to become a sanitarian, which you'll see on the next slide. So tuition costs are, one thing. Vehicle monitoring, testing, postage, a certified now is $7 plus per certified letter that we send. So, postage can be expensive. Advertising, printing, gasoline, office supplies. If you can see that there's nothing really out of the ordinary. The biggest, and then we have meetings and conferences, $1,400. The thing about the health department is all of us are members of different associations. So whether it's the Mass Health Officers Association or Mass Environmental Health Association, we're part of these groups, and we have to take educational components. So we do go to conferences to maintain our CEUs and our credits to keep up our credentials. So you can see, that's basically the breakdown in the appropriations that we have for the 2022 budget. And again, there's no substantial increase to anything there. I think I did go over the tuition for $2,785. It's a little bit of an increase, we think, compared to what actually I showed on the last slide. So tuition rates are rising, and it is these reimbursements are in compliance with the steelworkers contract. So That's a consideration that these costs are going up, and we haven't really asked for it here in the 2022 operation budget, but it is sort of a concern internally. With that dollar amount, it does limit what other individuals can do, whether we want to do food manager classes, system inspector classes, or other educational opportunities for certificates that we don't necessarily have. So that's a consideration for you. This operational budget does not include the public health nurse that is funded through the fire department. I'm sure most of you are aware. And just on a side note, maybe that this won't affect us for the FY 22, but the health department received a health modernization grant thanks to Chief Kelleher. We have in order to modernize the department, we have inspectional software called Food Code Pro and Housing Code Pro software. Not this year because we do have the grant, but following this, the town does assume the responsibility of the $3,600 per year software. So, the move for everyone is to do more business online, and we're trying to follow that as well. And, maybe not this budgeted season because we have, the grant, but in the future, we would like to continue to modernize, our systems here and our permits. That way we can, it can be easier for the department, and we can provide better service to the town of Foxborough. And that's all that I have on operating budget 510. This is also out of the health department account. This is account 520. This goes to LifeWorks, formerly the ARPA South Norfolk. It's a grateful, and this is right out of their, what they give us for their report for this year. But they're grateful to be a partner with the town of Foxborough. The financial support the town of Foxborough gives their organization, as well as 11 other local towns, enables them to optimize the services they provide to the residents who are diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including autism. It's through this partnership that their organization is making a difference in the lives of people with disabilities, and they're thankful for that collaboration. LifeWorks requested level funding, $9,753, and that is also reflected in the health department's budget. So that is my brief overview of our budget. I will try to answer any questions that I can for you. And if I don't have them right now, I can, Mike might know, or I can also get back to you with the answers. So thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Jack, Martin, do you have any questions for Matthew? Do you have any further questions? Any of the liaison members that met with Mike Kelleher before?
Yeah, we met with Mike, and it was a good session. I'm particularly interested in hearing from Matthew. He's been on board now a few weeks. Often the insights that a new person gets are very powerful and maybe worth listening to. And maybe it's too early, maybe it's not. But when you move from one pond to another, you see things that the rest of us don't see. What have you seen that is uncommon, unusual? Maybe we can do better or different. Let's see.
No, to be honest, from what I've seen, Foxborough is in a really good spot. I see the people around town hall, the collaboration there is great. To be honest, a lot of the problems that we have in the office regarding, the move, that is a kind of, we're trying to modernize with everyone else, and that's being pushed out through the state as well. And well, I had my time in Weymouth. We were going through the same exact struggles there. We were trying to move in that direction, and it was hard for us too. So, to be honest, it is very similar to what I'm used to, and I think you have a great group of people. I haven't been there long enough to say anything. Maybe if I'm there longer, I'll have a little bit more for you. But at the moment, there's no big red flags or anything. Just a great group of people.
Yeah, I guess what I was looking for were not just red flags being something that's not good,
Right.
but paths to doing something different or better at a higher level than we've done in the past. And maybe once again, that's not yet clear.
It's tough. Part of being in this position is getting to know the town itself, the town of Foxborough. And I've been focused on, the job at hand, which is when I started, it was getting the annual report done. Now it's, I'm here in front of you, and these are kind of new to me. I need that time in order to see what's going on out in the town, which I haven't felt like I've done yet to be able to give you a good answer, if that makes sense. But I think in time, I'll be able to answer that question for you.
Eric Arvdon. I think it's very unfair that you're asking that question of the new guy. Now, you've been around the town long enough. We're in the middle of a pandemic, Jack. With everything that's been going on, everything that we're trying to do, we're trying to stay ahead of the pandemic here. We're trying to address all the state requirements, all the restaurant requirements. This is different for everybody. And now we got a new guy in here. We're all trying to do the best we can with the resources we have. We need more resources, Jack. So if you want to help us out, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be asking for more resources, more inspectors, and more capabilities, including electronic processing, so that we can be more efficient for the people that we regulate. I hope that helps, Jack.
Yeah, Eric, I think you realize that those issues don't start with the advisory committee. They start with your board and dealing with the town manager, and it comes to us as a budget eventually.
So what's your point, Jack? I don't understand.
The point is that we're seeing Matthew for the first time. He's seeing the town for the first few weeks, and it was simply a question to him as, what are your first impressions, and what do they show us? That's simple.
Right, and he answered that very well. Thank you, Matthew. Welcome on board.
Thank you, sir.
Matthew, I just have a clarification. I know you mentioned one of your inspectors is going to submit for tuition reimbursement.
Correct.
Because he's getting certification. So in the budget, I see one for 2,671. That is the amount, right?
That is the amount. That is, yes. That
Okay,
is the
good.
estimated tuition amount.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That is everything for the budget. There's no added tuition expenses for any other employee, really.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
I had a couple of questions. One is a budget question. The other is more a general question, because I have a public health background. On the budget, finance, Matthew, welcome, Matthew. Great to meet you virtually. Finance sends us a year-to-date budget sheet.
Yes.
And if you look at the year-to-date budget sheet, there's a line item called other departmental supplies that was budgeted at $700.
Yes.
And year-to-date, the expenditures are over $5,000.
So, and Mike Kelleher will be able to speak to this better than myself. But I guess when we got the modernization grant, So
Right.
basically, we got Food Code Pro and Housing Code Pro software to make us more efficient. So we paid for the first year through, and that is that line item. The chief was working with his budget to find a way to help that along. And then next year, the company will reimburse that.
Okay.
And then the year after that, the town will have to pay.
Right.
Matthew, I can explain that a little bit if you'd like.
Please.
So the town got a large chunk of money from the federal government called the CARES Act to help mitigate some of the costs incurred by COVID. One of the hopes we had is that CARES Act funding would pay for that software. It was needed. When I stepped in to help out the health department after Pauline's departure, I sat down with the staff, and that was the number one request: was we needed to modernize the way we did business, because a lot of it was done on paper and things like that. So that was the big ask from the staff at the health department. So in an effort to get that done, we were looking at alternative funding sources. The CARES Act is one of them. We're gonna have to circle back with the finance department to figure out if that's going to be covered by the CARES Act. If not, we have other avenues that we can pay for that software. So that's not going to come out of their budget. They won't end the year in a deficit. I can guarantee that. There's other funding avenues that we can explore if it's not covered by the CARES Act. So I have the same issue with my budget. There's different appropriations that were made during COVID that are going to be backed out and covered by CARES Act. It's just the way they do the funding. So hope the question.
Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure.
The other question I had, and it's more, being still relatively new to town in terms of the Board of Health in general, in terms of COVID and the relationship with the Department of Public Health, who handles contact tracing for residents in Foxborough that have a positive COVID result?
So it's to be honest, a lot of it's done through the fire department. So basically, it depends on what kind of complaint it is. Right now, just again, stepping in, what I see is, a complaint comes in, and if it's a workplace complaint, if it's, not through the Maven system, then the health department takes it. If it's through the Maven system, then the public health nurse takes it through the fire department, and they do the contact tracing that way. So it depends on how we get the information.
Okay.
And Dennis, just to continue on that vein, a lot of the contact tracing that we do is done by the state. It depends on how busy we are and what's going on at that time. So they have the contact tracing center, which is available to us, that we take advantage of quite often, especially when we have an outbreak or a cluster. We need to, there's a lot of moving parts, so we take advantage of that often.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm familiar with the CTC, so that's a good adjunct to the town.
It did definitely a team effort between us, public health, and then the State Department of Public Health.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Hey, Matthew.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask a brief question for Matthew. Is there anything that they were inspecting in Weymouth that we need to be inspecting here? Do you notice any differences?
No. The fee schedule, is pretty much the same between Weymouth and here. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Matthew, two quick questions. There's a line item for animal inspector for $1,100.
Yes.
Is that like something you pay the animal control?
That's correct.
Okay, that's fine. And then my second question is, I know this fiscal year, conferences, meetings are all canceled. So that's a line item for fiscal year 21 for $1,400. And then next year you're requesting $1,438. But my question is, we're probably not spending that much money in fiscal year 21, correct?
So conferences are still going on, unfortunately. Well, they're virtual now.
Virtual, yes.
Because because MHOA members, Mass Health Officers, or MIHA members, we still have to pay fees to those organizations. So
Okay.
yeah, the fees aren't as much this year. You're
Okay.
totally correct.
Yeah.
Going forward, they're going to be back at that level or even
Right.
more.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Matthew? If not, we'll need to move along. And I just want to thank you for coming. And if we have any questions, the liaison will reach out to you. But thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hey, I think we're right on schedule. The next department is the Council of Aging. Mark Craig, are you online?
I am here. Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much. I'd like to share my screen too, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. So let's see how this works if I'm going to do my dual screen. Can you see my screen and everything?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
we're good, Mark.
perfect. That worked. So let me get in this. Okay. Hello, everyone. For those who haven't met me or we haven't met yet in person, my name is Mark Craig. I'm the Director of Human Services. I've been in this role for a little over 2.5 years. Before that, I was in Randolph. Before that, I was in Hanover in a variety of roles all over the municipal spectrum, as they say. So I'm going to start off tonight by giving you guys an overview of 2020, the highlights, the lowlights, our COVID procedures here at the Foxborough Council on Aging and Human Services Department, adaptation, and then I'm going to end up with my FY22 request. So for those who've been around for a while, you know I love my data, and someone actually pointed out last year that they hope to see this again this year. I was hoping not for the giant drop-off in February there, but you will see that our biggest average daily check-in was the month before we closed, ever, of all time. Obviously, I'm pretty proud of that. So we started off the year very strong, and then March 13th happened. We closed for 4 months after that. We reopened. We are one of the very, very few senior centers that reopened, and the only ones that have stayed open. I'm very proud of that. I think that all of our successes over the last 6 months have been directly because we're open. And again, we're one of the very few that are open. Yeah, the numbers aren't great, but people are coming. The seniors that are coming out to our programs are benefiting tremendously rather than being stuck inside their homes. So 2020 year in review, we welcomed 238 new clients. Other interesting things, we gave out 2,450 rolls of toilet paper. I never thought that would be a statistic I'd be proud of, but we did it. We also gave away 3,600 pounds of fruit and vegetables for seniors who are food insecure way back when we were worried about going to the grocery store. We also were able to secure a new van. So our aging Van Go was on its way out. We were able to secure a new van through CARES Act money, saving the taxpayers of Foxborough $89,900. So obviously we're happy about that too. Another great thing is while we were closed, all of my staff, whether they were administrators or human services workers, all became mini social workers. So while we were closed, 4,200 phone calls were made. Every one of my staff members were assigned 80 seniors in the community to check in on every single day. This mattered because at the time, if you'll remember back then, we had very little connection, certainly those that might live alone. So friendships developed. And I mean real actual friendships that for years, if someone might just say hi as a staff member was going to the bathroom and the person was in Tai Chi, but my staff became caregivers for these seniors. If there was a need that needed to be met, that the referral was made to Pam or Christina, our social workers. Their needs were met immediately, and we got things taken care of. I did a lot of community needs assessments for our seniors and our human services. For those who don't know, our human services are basically anyone over the age of 18 who needs assistance. We can connect them with the resources that they need, whether it's because of food insecurity, rental assistance, a person to talk to, or just trying to figure out what the next step in their life is. So we were able to gain 134 new human services clients, most ranging between 18 and 59. Obviously for obvious reasons, a lot of people that never thought they would need help filling out unemployment insurance, never thought they'd have to worry about healthcare because they were in a very, very stable job that all of a sudden March 17th disappeared. We were there for them. I'm very, very proud of that. Pam and Christina, they did a tremendous job, really, really working their butts off, talking to a lot of people, getting people the resources that they need. And most of the time, it wasn't too late for them. It wasn't too late. So we're very excited about that. We did a lot of giveaways. We were closed. We were still giving things away. We gave away toilet paper. We've been giving away pies. We gave away food, and we've continued that. I started giveaways really back in April, but around August, I started to realize that we needed to get ready for what eventually would be a vaccine giveaway. So we wanted to get better at giving things away. And normally I would never touch, in a perfect world, I would never touch a municipal department giving things away to town residents. But it's just a perfect scenario of us getting better at taking reservations, taking appointments, taking in hundreds of phone calls at one time. So the name of the game over the last few months has been giveaways. We're doing meals. We're doing pies. I mean, we're really giving away a lot of really great stuff. So while we were closed to the public was 14 of the longest and the shortest weeks of my life. We did a lot of virtual programs. We tried to do as much as we could to offer to people. I was here every day. We were doing bingo every day. I mean, stuff that I thought was a great idea at the time. And by the end, I was like, I can't deal with bingo anymore. I never thought I would call so many bingo balls. But the craft organization helped us out. We had Pat Patriot, we had NFL players, we had cheerleaders, just to try and keep it interesting. We also did at-home yoga, at-home exercise classes, at-home craft classes. My staff also worked on updating a 5-year-old community resource guide, which we ended up producing. It's a 24-page guide that is a complete Bible of everything that's available to every Foxborough resident. So we're able to really connect people with these resources. And we're actually working on updating that again this spring. So that way, if phone numbers have changed. We also partners with the Sage School, their capstone project, which was supposed to be with the seniors in Foxborough at the Senior Center, turned into a virtual presentation. So we're able to host all their videos so the community could see it starting last spring and into the summer too. So then it started to become time for us to get ready to open. I knew that I wanted to open. A lot of other senior centers, as I said, had not planned that. I modeled a lot of my reopening procedures. I'm a Disney nut. That's something weird about me, but I model a lot of my reopening procedures after Walt Disney World, trying to figure out how to best deliver the message to seniors in a clear, concise way to let them know that things have changed. For many people, this was their daily life for 20 plus years coming to this building, and it looked the same for 20 plus years. Seniors don't like change. When they came back, they had to expect a lot of change. There's a lot of plastic in the building. Furniture has been removed. We've taken away coffee things. I mean, things that they came to second nature, that this was their life. Programs that before would have 40, 50 people in it, max capacity was 14. We were also able to purchase a tent with the help of the Commission on Disabilities, the Friends of the Foxborough Seniors, and the CARES Act. We were able to purchase a tent to bring our programs outside. So the first 3 months that we were open, all of our programs were outside in the parking lot. Under the tent, even in 90-degree days, we had seniors exercising outside because for some of them, this was the only time they left their house each week. We adapted. We started doing our programs outside. We started bringing programs into the community. We did hot dog grill giveaways at Foxborough Housing. We adapted chorus to be a ukulele, a kazoo type bass type program. Jean Bonneau really just wanted to keep her chorus group together. So before they'd have 40 people, so she split it up into 2 separate groups just to keep that community together. Obviously, everyone's wearing masks. Everyone's 6 feet apart. A lot of our historic presentations, we actually were able to do them on the common. And a few seniors have actually come up to me and said they don't want to see those kind of presentations move back into the building when we go back to normal times. They'd rather be out in the community. They want to see people driving by and engaging with them. We also did a Christmas parade throughout the community just to bring a little bit of joy to people. We know Christmas was going to be a hard time for a lot of people, not being able to see their grandkids or their families. So just trying to bring something to them. That was a lot really quick, but so where do we go from here? I show this to you guys every year. There are 3,951 seniors, people over the age of 60 in Foxborough. That number is anticipated to rise to 5,452 by 2030. So it's expected to increase 38% by then. And then obviously the biggest thing on all of our minds is vaccine. This past week, we were able to administer 275 vaccines with the help of the Foxborough Fire Department, Tom Kenvin and Corey Shepherdson. I mean, it's been unreal. We've been able to do that here at the Senior Center. That is what we were preparing for. We've been taking registrations. We've been registering people on the Prep Mod site, if you're familiar with that. And even today, we're able to, the same place I was delivering toilet paper 10 months ago, we're able to see people, the same people I gave toilet paper to, got their literal life-saving vaccine today. And it was just life came full circle for me. I'm not an emotional guy, but I will tell you that today was really, really great. Also, we're able to get a $22,000 transportation grant from MAPC to utilize livery services in addition to our Van Go and Cargo, which we operate daily throughout the community. One of the big goals for me is for 2021 is to rejuvenate our trips and programs revolving fund. It was very important to me for this last year to keep a lot of our free programs going. So our trips and programs revolving fund dipped. It's about where we were when I first came in. It's about $10,000 in the account, which is low for me. Over the last couple of years, I've been trying to build it up as much as possible through trips and programs, generating funds. Obviously, we're not taking any international trips right now, so hopefully in the future we are, so I can generate some more income to then run some more free programs for people. But like I said, the vaccine's on everyone's minds, certainly for seniors. A lot of them have even, as they got their first shot, they said, okay, great. When can I come back to the Senior Center, my program? I hope it's not going to be full because I really want to come back. That was literally the moment after someone got their shot. We haven't seen them in 10 months. They've been isolated for 10 months. That was the moment for them where they knew that life could start getting back to normal. So it's very exciting. Then I'll kind of go into my FY21 requests. The past few years, I've been asking for an additional staff member, whether it's part-time or full-time. I explained to town manager and the finance director, I wasn't going to insult the process this year. Obviously, times are tough. Money is tight. I went for a 2% increase. Most of that was because of the union, steelworker union negotiated contract. And then just very, very small increases in our expense account items. But I did, as you can see, things are fluctuating by 50%, 166%. Everything here is basically moving all around because this year is not like last year. But I basically kept it the same with only increasing by $708. So that is my life in a nutshell. It's a lot really quick. I'm a fast talker, so I didn't mean to talk too fast, but can I answer any questions?
Jack, do you have any follow-up questions? Well, Mark, I have a question.
Sure.
I know last year at last year's town meeting, the town approved it. I forgot how much it was, but to study for the next senior center. So I know it's not on the. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm just curious. At what point would that thing come back or be brought back for discussion at town level?
Yeah, so it was actually November 2019 special town meeting.
Okay, wow.
Time went by very quick. So the town authorized $40,000 to do a feasibility study for a senior/intergenerational community center. Last February, we chose a firm, and then March happened. That firm is Bargman Henry Archetypes. It was one of the firms, actually, Both firms that applied for the RFP were firms that I worked with previously on previous community center projects. Bargman Henry was actually the one that designed the building that I spent the last 7 years of my life getting ready for Randolph. So they reopened back in July. They were a Boston-based business, so they didn't get to reopen until July. And they picked right up beginning of September, October. We sent out a survey to the community. I think it was over 700 families responded to that survey. Really, really great information, what people were looking for in a potential building. At this point, I'm working with the architects on what would actually be included in the space. I've engaged the rec department as well as veteran services to try and figure out what would they want to see in a intergenerational building. So the firm is supposed to present. They're supposed to be done with this project in the April-May timeframe. Next steps for the community. I said this to the subcommittee the other day when I met with Tom and Jack and Dennis. I don't know how the community is going to feel. I mean, it's potential for a big project. It's potential for some big money to be spent. I think it will be nice seeing what the feasibility study says and presenting it to the community in a nice manner to figure out how the community wants to proceed. And if there is interest, then maybe it's something that can move forward in the future. Maybe when financial times get a little bit more steady.
Thank you. Good enough. Hey, Mark, I just want to let you know it's a great presentation and it's very good. And unfortunately, it's not easy to see it on TV on a small screen. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask if you could maybe email that presentation to me or email to the liaison so everybody can take a look at it. But it's very good, very informative.
Okay.
And I see a couple of hands being raised. So I'm going to ask. I'll go with Dennis first, and then Tom.
Yes. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. Enjoyed meeting you the other day virtually. I just have one question. Looking at your van driver expenditures year to date, do you think there's enough in your budget for the coming year, given where you are year to date, 86% spend?
Are you talking about staffing?
Well, I'm just looking at the van drivers line item under salary and wages.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough. Every council on aging in the state of Massachusetts is actually benefits from what's called a formula grant, and it's essentially don't quote me. I believe it's $18 per senior that each community gets. So sometime in late May, we actually get a check from the state of Massachusetts for somewhere around $38,000, and that's what that line item funds that.
Okay, great.
Tom?
Yeah, just piggyback off of what Larry's question was regarding the funding for a potential new place. Is that a type of project that grant money is available for? Are there any either federal or state programs that offer grants to build up?
I've seen a few communities be able to get the community development block grant. It's essentially combining resources. It can be great for a community. It can also kind of decimate departments too. So I'll caution the town against that. But it also for a construction design money that could be okay. I also think that potential there for some private donations in the community, hopefully as well. Town of Hyannis was able to build their entire community center ice rink off of private donations. Again, different town, but $22 million 15 or so years ago. They did a huge fundraising campaign. Smaller amount of people, different, there's a lot of people that's their summer place and they like to throw a lot of money at the town, but I think there's potential of that for some private donations as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mark, the injections for the seniors, the
Yeah.
COVID vaccine,
Yes.
was that coordinated through the Gillette site, or did you guys do that here in town?
No, we are very lucky enough, and I can see that Chief Kelleher is still on here. So we're very, very, very lucky to have Chief Kelleher and Tom Kenvin advocating for us at the state level to try and get as many doses as possible. As I said before, a lot of communities don't have that. as a lot of my colleagues are not doing vaccination clinics in their senior centers. And I can tell you, no one is doing what happened today of vaccinating seniors in their homes at housing. No one. We are the only ones doing that, and I think it's a true benefit to Foxborough residents. The hope is, if people are watching at home, the hope is that we're going to continue to get them. We can't guarantee it. We were able to 2 weeks in a row send a robo call out to people over the age of 75 and let them know that they can sign up with us. We have one more clinic tomorrow. We literally just filled up about 15 minutes ago our 50 spots. I'm hoping that Tom calls me on Thursday and says, guess what we can do next week? Another 100 spots. That would be great. But no, so we are helping people register for Gillette. There's a lot of people that want to get their picture by the stadium on the field, kind of with the field in the background. So we're helping them register at the same time. We're helping them with that kind of confusing prep mod website, and we're getting really good at it. we can go really fast through that site.
Yeah. The reason why I brought it up is because I understood that a lot of towns were having challenges here. So, you guys did a great job advocating for that.
Yeah. I said in a meeting this morning that if you've seen the news that 40% of people over the age of 75 haven't gotten the vaccine, that is not Foxborough. I mean, that is not indicative of the community here. Here, I'm confident in saying that most of the people who are over the age of 75 that want to get vaccinated have the resources to either come here, being vaccinated in their homes by Tom Kenvin, or be able to drive a mile and a half away to go to the stadium. So we are very, very lucky compared to most towns.
Fantastic. Great job.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, so just wondering, because I know it's a little confusing, especially for elderly, signing up for that second vaccine. Is that something you are helping them with, making that appointment?
Yeah, so what everyone's doing at the end of vaccination for every single person, I'm having an individual conversation with them, sitting down with them if they're being vaccinated here, explaining we're crossing our fingers. We're hoping that 28 days after you get vaccinated, we're going to have the shots. But we can't guarantee it. Most people have seen the news. They've seen the supply lines. So what we're doing is we're actually advocating for them to sign up for a Gillette second appointment that day. If they can't do it, we'll do it for them. And I'm telling every single one of them, that's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is someone brings you up to Gillette, or we bring you up to Gillette, you get that second shot. That's the worst case. That's not a bad worst case. And best case scenario is we're able to get additional 100 vaccines right before the March 1st timeframe, and we'll be able to vaccinate them. So we are having conversations with everyone who comes to this building to get vaccinated.
Finding that most of the seniors are favorable to getting the vaccine, because there is some controversy.
Yeah. So back in the beginning of December, once the emergency authorizations came out, I sent a survey out to our email group. I got about 300 responses, so I think it's a pretty good amount. 94.5% people said that they would want to get vaccinated immediately over the age of 60. A further 3% said they'd want to be vaccinated within 6 months, and the remaining 2% said that they had no intention of doing it. So 2%, pretty good to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, Dennis.
Yeah. Mark, again, great program for the community. I'm curious if you're participating in the new promotion where if you bring a senior in 75 years and older, and you're not really eligible, you can get the vaccine just by bringing that senior in for the vaccine.
So as I was watching the governor's address today, I immediately sent an email out to my staff and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. It starts Thursday, which obviously is tomorrow. Our Thursday appointments are sold out, so it's not like we can add in if someone, their grandchild brings them in. We don't have enough doses to satisfy that need tomorrow. But I think what we're going to do is talk with Tom, talk with Corey, talk with the chief, and figure out next week, is this something we can do? The governor specifically mentioned mass vaccination sites like Gillette, but is that something we can do where we can hopefully encourage people to assist? Would make our life easier. So if we don't have to register them for that second dosage, I personally would rather see it go to a senior in need. But if the need is there to assist that senior, if that's what makes them get the dose, then I guess that's a great thing too.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Mark, if we have something like a snow day or some other thing come up during a time where you have a whole bunch of people scheduled for vaccines, you kind of have a group B of people that you can get in right away so they don't go to waste once they're out of the freezer?
So we actually had snow on actually two of the days we've had so far. We kind of made a joke with one senior of put in four-wheel drive. You got to get up here. This is a life-saving vaccine. Now, that was a dusting of snow. Obviously, if it was a blizzard, we'd figure out the next best case scenario. There's a time period where the doses can be used. Tom said today his main goal in life, I think, is to not have a dose lost. I mean, you see in the news that 1,200 doses in Massachusetts, 1,200 out of essentially 1 million seems like a pretty good ratio, but we don't want to have a single wasted dose here in Foxborough.
Okay, any further questions? If not, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Send the presentation, and if we have any questions, we'll reach out to you.
Do you want me to send it to you and then you forward it out? How do you want me to do that?
You can send it to me if you want. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the line, is the chairman of the Historical Commission, Mark. I see you, Mark. Hi.
Hello.
And sorry we're running a few minutes late, but you're on.
Good. I'll help you make it up because I don't have a fancy presentation. You got two tough acts to follow there.
Don't jinx it. It could be forever.
We're a much smaller operation than these last two. We don't have any salaries. We have a much smaller budget. And what we do is we maintain the historical assets, the town museum. We work on Memorial Hall. We do cemetery preservation. We had a guy in last year who got a lot of work done. We review houses over 75 years that they want to get demolished, make sure that they're not knocking down the treasures of the town. We've had school tours for second graders. Obviously, those are dead right this year. And basically, we've been pretty much closed since last February or so. Two of our biggest things are Founders Day and Memorial Day, when we get most of our visitors. Those obviously didn't happen. We are open by appointment. I've had a few people come in, but by and large, we're closed. That's about it.
Jack, do you have anything you want to say? I know it's a big budget. It was tough. It took a lot of time.
Now, maybe 2 years ago, Mark, I believe you got a grant and hired a specialist up from Connecticut to restore, I'll say 50 of the historic grave markers in the cemeteries in the town. Do you anticipate that happening again? Because
yes.
I don't think he finished.
No, not even close. So what happened was we had this guy come in from Connecticut. We got a grant. We got a CIP of $25K. We expected that to take a few years to do, but this is a case where COVID actually helped us because this guy had a lot of commitments that he had for last year that he wasn't able to fulfill because of COVID. So he was able to spend some time with us. So he restored 42 different grave sites between the center burial ground up by Memorial Hall and the Boyden ground on Cocasset Street. So that leaves us of the 462 somewhat graves. We had gone through and rated them all on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being in the worst shape. So that still leaves 118 that were rated either 4 or 5. So I don't know what the status of future CIP is for this year, but that's something we definitely want to do again. We've got the 6 cemeteries and a lot more work to do.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just as a for instance, do you have any anticipated larger expenditures maybe in the next year or two? after the fog of COVID lifts, is there anything that's been like put on the back burner that you'd like to bring forward in another year or two so we're prepared?
We should pretty much be able to finish up Memorial Hall this year. We may have a little trouble squeezing in what we want to get done with it, so we'll have to reassess that. There's about a 21-year-old HVAC system that gives humidity and heating for the rooms there. The rooms are climate controlled, so that's starting to get long in the tooth. Getting a little worried about that. Would be the main.
That would probably be a larger expense of being a CIP type of issue as opposed to.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
it's trouble with us. We don't spend a lot on regular things. We rely on CIP to help take care of the smoothing out the big stuff.
As you're trying to preserve stuff, it's better to catch it early as opposed to costing more later on. So
Yeah.
if you had your eye on anything that was coming due or coming been a precautionary for the last couple of years. And
No, that would be the main thing.
okay, thank you.
Dennis?
Yeah, just a minor budget thing, because it's why we're here. We're looking at the budgets. Again, when you look at your year-to-date expenditures, most of your expenses are really hitting the other department expense category, and nothing's hitting supplies. So it's something in terms of how the expenses are being coded. You need to look at that and maybe fix it.
Well, most of the expenses this year, I mean, we haven't been open. So as far as supplies, I mean, I go in there and spend some time, other people do, but we really haven't been doing much on it. But most of our expense this year was, we've contracted with the company Advantage Preservation, all right? And the library has reels of the Foxborough Reporter. They add it to them every year, and they go back to the beginning, back in the 1800s. So this company takes these reels and through a process digitizes them so that you have an online database. You can take it's a searchable database. So if you want to look up, Smith and the Reporter, it'll show you the instances of Smith through the years that we have actually done. We have like 1956 to 2002 done. And so we want to expand on that. So that's what most of the expenses were this year. That's why we put that in that other category.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Anyone? I guess, Mark, you are correct. It's pretty fast. Thank you. Thank you it's good to see you again, and thank you for coming. And if we have any questions, I'm sure Jack will be calling you.
All right. Thank you all.
But good night.
All right.
Okay. We're about 5 minutes early, so I see Manny's online, and I see the trustees for the libraries online. So Manny, if you're ready, I'm gonna let you start. But before you go, I'm just gonna let Bernard take over this session because I'm going to recuse myself from the library. My wife belongs to the Friends of Borden Library, so I don't want to chair this session. So Bernard, it's all yours.
Manny, welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you, Bernard. Can you hear me okay?
We can all hear you fine.
Excellent. So this is not a flashy budget, to say the least, for FY22. And I'll explain that in a few moments. I do want to address the library during COVID times. So Boyden Library is still one of the only libraries that are open for patrons around the area. We've been open since late July to our patrons. We had first started curbside service back late May. So it was basically patrons would be placing holds on item and staff would be coming out and delivering the items in the trunk of their car. We were doing that. And then, like I said, late July, we started to open the library to our patrons. We do set capacity. We do have volunteers at the door, making sure we don't exceed that capacity. So we've been doing that. We've been smart about things. We have shields. If you've gone to the library, you'll see that the shields around circulation desks, plenty of hand sanitizer. We're constantly cleaning on an hourly basis, just making sure everyone feels safe, not only staff, but for our patrons. So I just wanted to explain that. Now I do want to get to the budget. And like I said, this is not a flashy budget. As you can see that we are actually coming in, and this is the first time in my entire career that I've had a budget come in at a negative 3.08. And I do want to explain where that number came from. So many of you know Margie Rossetti. She was a staple to not only the library, but to the community of Foxborough. She has retired after 31 plus years of service to our patrons and to the community. And Margie at the time was at the top step of her position. Obviously, she had been there for so long. So she retired in the fall of 2020. And we have a replacement for Margie. Her name is Jessica Henderson. And she is the new youth services librarian. Now, when Margie was there, she was known as the children's librarian, but now we've changed the title to youth services to include teens. And I'll explain that in a few moments about the teens, the infants, children, and tweens, and how that all comes together with youth services. So she came in at a lower step than what Margie was at when she retired. So that's one part. The other part was, again, Margie had been there for so long that she had a very handsome sick leave / vacation buyback. So that was in the library's budget for FY21. So when I started to build this budget, I was already in the negative just because of those two factors in itself. I mean, it is what it is. So if you do want to look at the budget under expenses, a total, we are at a negative 6.25. And I explained the reason behind that. We had some shuffling with staff, with some other retirements. Other staff came in and they started at a lower step. So that's where you see the negative numbers. Now, as far as operating expenses, there are some increases. And I would like to address custodial services with an increase of $5,000 to $40,000, as well as custodial supplies, an additional $4,000 to come up to $7,000. That's all for cleaning. That's all what's going on with the pandemic. You know, with the library being open, we're doing more cleaning. We need more disinfectant. We need all cleaning supplies. We've also have done various deep cleaning throughout the whole library, where the library is closed and there's a deep cleaning. And with a 36,000 square foot building, that's not cheap, but we do it. We want to make sure everyone feels safe when they enter the building. I want to make sure staff feels safe while they're working at the library. So that's where you see the increase. I don't think you'll ever, from now on, see that go down. I think if anything, you'll see that increase more and more. You know, we need to have everything sanitized. Like I said, it's a very large building. It's 3 floors. So we want to keep that, you know, to make sure everyone feels safe. A very slight increase in network and information systems. That's the sales membership fee. Sales is the, I have 3 dogs, sorry, and one had a toy. Sales is the ILS, the library system that we use, the software that we use to check our materials out to our patrons, to check them in, to reserve the rooms once we have our meeting rooms open again, which they are currently closed. They are, number one, they're being served for quarantine for all our items that arrive back. So that's where that fee is. It's not much. It's an additional $575. There's a slight increase in audio visual. We're going to add video game rentals to our collection. Various libraries have done this, so we're going to do it as well. It's a service that I do want to offer to our patrons. Not the console, but just the video games itself. And then there is an increase in office supplies. We're going to finally get a copier for the staff. In the past, staff would use a key to make copies of everything from coloring sheets to daily cash reports. The copier company is strapped too. So, you know, they look at that now, and we're making a lot of free copies, and so we need to, stop that as well. And we're going to have a copier. That money would include the copier as well as the companies that have reached out to us. That would include the paper as well as toner as well. So that's where that number is coming from. So if I can just circle back for a moment, last year, during my presentation, I talked about a teen librarian or a young adult librarian. Obviously, that's not in here this fiscal year. Originally it was, but with consultation with the trustees, myself and the administration, we felt that it wasn't the year to be asking for a new position. That being said, next year we will come back for that position, because I know I feel very strongly about it. And I know the trustees as well. We talk about the cabin fever that's going on. I'm sure you know a lot of people, maybe yourself, boy, I can't wait to go to the movies or go to a concert or heck, go on vacation. People feel that way about the library. They do want to come back and attend programs, go to concerts, attend story times. We can do that virtually, and we have, but it's not the same when you have a story time, when you have a concert, when you have an author, or you have various organizations, the Art Association, the Scouts. They come to use the library. It's just not there right now. So once this is all behind us, I think you're going to see a surge with patrons coming back because they're going to want to use our services. And including in that, we do need a teen librarian, because that's the person that's going to guide our teens. They're the ones that are going to be purchasing the materials and creating the programs for our teens. I've said this before, we do have a teen room right now, but it's very similar to a band. You do have the participants, you have the instruments, but you don't have a conductor to lead the band. And that's what a teen librarian does. Again, we're not asking for it this fiscal year, but we are going to come back next year with that position because we're extremely serious about it. I don't know if Colin or Kevin would like to speak as well or answer questions. We can.
Yeah, I'll add something, but I think Tom has a question first. Why don't we do questions and I'll add a couple of points. And
I'll just to reiterate Manny's passionate advocation for a teen. I've actually seen in the papers other towns are actively searching for one. So it's not doesn't seem to be a fly by night or just a luxury situation. But if other communities are actually seeing the value in this and are actively looking, and we've now secured that, we are maybe ahead of the game as as the people we've got in our department heads are always looking to be that step ahead before, rather than trailing the curve. We're ahead of the curve on something like that, which I appreciate. Thank you.
I'm just going to go ahead then. Hey, Manny. So quick question, just kind of looping back to what you were talking about earlier. So the position you just backfilled is youth services and includes teens. And then next year you're going to bring on a new teen person. I think you kind of alluded to that earlier, and I just kind of wanted to pull it back all together.
Sure. So youth services would include, that's the librarian that would oversee children's and the teens. So it's just like our adult services librarian. So they handle all ages after teens. That's what the youth services librarian does. A young adult librarian is going to be specifically a librarian for our teens. Like we have a reference librarian that's specifically answering reference questions, providing information for research.
So Dan, if I can just if I could just add some other color on that. Young adults is, and I think we talked about this with AdCom last year, young adults is the age group where we lose patrons and we don't get them back until they come back in with their own kids. I know we've talked about this with our AdCom liaisons as well. So usually you get kids to come into the building from, Mother Goose on the Loose and Story Hour and things like that. And then you keep them through a period of time when they're doing homework in the building. And then once there are, cooler things to do, or once we don't target them as much as events, they're gone. And we don't see them again until they're coming back in with their kids, right? And the reality of the situation is the young adults is an unmet need. YA, as it's referred to in the library industry, as it is, and it is a specialty now. To Tom's point, you go to school for library sciences to get your degree in YA services, which is not something that existed 10, 20, 30 years ago. So there are still two department heads, if you think of it that way, in terms of the structure. Underneath Manny, there's two department heads. There's the head of adult services, which is Kathy Bell Harney. And then there's the head of what we used to refer to as children's services, which was Margie Rossetti and now is Jessica. And that would encompass the YA specialist librarian that we're talking about targeting for next year.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm still reading Mother Goose on the Loose, so I'll stop.
Jack, go ahead. I see you raise your hand a couple times.
Yeah, as the library has evolved over the years, one of the places that has shown the greatest change is the shift onto electronic capabilities, and particularly the library's computer capabilities are open even to people who have limited or no service in their home. Talk about the health of that part of your portfolio. Not just, certainly today, there's a problem with people going in and using the computers. Next fall, that'll change, we all hope. And so what is the plans there? Or maybe what you have is sufficient, both in terms of hardware and software.
Well, Jack, that's a very good question. I'll address the software first. When we closed our doors back in mid-March due to COVID, we weren't allowing any materials to be checked out to our patrons, but they were still wanting those services. So what we had done is we had purchased various streaming services that work with libraries. We originally had Hoopla, which is one of them. And then we had purchased another streaming service called Canopy. And we still have that to this day. Canopy is more of it's almost like a Netflix for libraries. It has motion pictures. It has a section specifically for kids as well, documentaries, educational. If you're familiar with various BBC series, Doc Martin, one of them, that's on these streaming services right now. And we have seen such a surge in that when we closed our doors, and still to this day, because we were offering something new. We were offering something for patrons that may feel reluctant to leave their home or to enter the library, but they can still watch a movie from their home using their library card. And since then, there are more companies coming out with various platforms like a Canopy or like a Hoopla. There's one that's coming out that's specifically for your British shows, very similar. If you've ever heard of Acorn TV, they work with them. So you'll have not only British shows and movies, but also movies from the Australia, New Zealand, various foreign films and TV as well. And there's some other ones. There's one specifically geared towards kids as well. So we're seeing an increase in that. And we're seeing it just for Foxborough, we're seeing such an increase in those items being borrowed. And of course, I'm not even bringing up our ebooks. You've seen a huge increase in that. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was working the reference desk and I had a gentleman come in and he had his iPad with him and he wanted to download Libby is the app that you can use for Hoopla. So I went step by step and I was able to get him a couple of materials to check out and read. And explained everything. So the software part, you're going to see that increase. I don't see that decreasing at all. I mean, it seems like every other week there's a new streaming app that someone's promoting, whether it be sports, movies, education. So I think you'll see more of that. As far as the hardware, we're always trying to stay up to date with our hardware. Even though right now we're at a capacity, we set our limits for the building. We still have patrons coming in using our computers because they don't have one at home. Or we had a case where a few months ago, the power was out in certain area of Foxborough. So we had patrons coming in and using our computers. Now, our public computers, they're not all open right now, obviously, because of COVID. We only have, I believe, 6, and they're socially distanced 6 feet apart. They still get used. I don't see that changing either, because not everyone owns a computer or an iPad or any sort of tablet to use at home. So they'll come to the library. It's free. The internet's free. So they don't have to worry about that. Oh, Dennis, I'm sorry.
Okay, Manny. So I think what you've done is very innovative. I've tried Hoopla and Canopy. I find Canopy much more user-friendly, frankly. But, again, this is on public TV. I would encourage people. It's free. You can get movies for free. You can get all kinds of things. And it is like a Netflix. Netflix maybe for a lot of the older movies that you can't get on Netflix. So that's just a pitch for you in terms of, people using the services. I had a budget question. It might be related. Under your network information systems, you budgeted $42,000, and through the end of January, you expended $38,000. Do you have enough in that line item, given all of this that's going on?
Yes. Yeah. So what sales does, their membership fees, every single library in the sales network, they have memberships fees. They're not all the same. Like ours is more than, say, like a town like Berkeley. And they made a conscious effort this year to make sure that the fees are lower than normal, because there are some towns in the network, Fall River being one of them, New Bedford, where they're pretty strapped when it comes. As a matter of fact, some of those towns and cities, they've actually had money taken away in their budget because the town or the city itself is in some dire needs. So no, that we'll have enough for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Manny, I have a quick question. I have a general question for you, actually. I noticed the cleaning supplies, is jumping because of COVID. I understand. But I guess my question is, it's more, do you go out and buy your own supplies, or do we have a central person buying for the whole town?
So Pam Riccio, our department administrator, she's the one that purchases the supplies for our custodial company as well as the staff. So she'll purchase everything from toilet tissue to hand sanitizer.
So I know I should be asking Bill or George this question, but I'm just curious. Would it be cheaper if all the different departments in town were to order from one company, so we have a bigger buying power? I'm just asking.
They could, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just curious because I noticed I know why you need to spend the money. I'm just curious if we, it's like going to Costco and buying bulk discount and get a good deal. So
yeah.
I'll talk to George. Yeah.
We had a big issue. I mean, when we had closed down originally back in mid-March, obviously everyone knows here that trying to find hand sanitizer or toilet paper was, so we were just grabbing from any vendor that had toilet tissue or gloves.
Agreed.
It was,
Agreed.
yeah.
But sometimes if we can get a big power discount, you're still paying for it. They're not, but at least we have one central buyer. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Any further questions? I think you're good, Manny. Oh, go ahead, Sharon. Go ahead. You're on mute, Sharon.
I just want to say we had a really good meeting, Paul and I, with Manny, and it was very informative, and it was good to see the direction that the library was going in. I just wanted to add that comment.
Thank you. My apologies if you heard dog toys during this presentation.
I wanted you to put the cat filter on. That would be funnier.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good, Manny. Thank you again for coming, and thank you, Kevin, for joining us. Kevin and Colin, thank you for joining us. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, we are back on schedule actually, and I see you, Ellie. I see you sign in. So next on the agenda is Ellie, the Veterans Director. So Ellie, all yours. Welcome.
Hi, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, this is different from last year, huh? Normally I'll have like little toys and stuff, but I have nothing. This year, well, for this upcoming fiscal year, I am not asking for an increase because last year's increase, or it was an increase, was enough to sustain us this year. Without the events and the feeding people and just normally what I would do in a pre-COVID year, I was just not spending the money. So this upcoming budget is exactly the same except for the salaries. And there was actually that line item actually decreased because I do have a new assistant. So she's starting, brand new. But it's been an awful year. Everybody knows this. But I managed pretty well budget wise last year, and the money that I have in my budget now is enough to sustain me going forward. That's not to say that I will not ask for an increase coming up in the following budget year. But as for now, I have enough to sustain my department. I'll take any questions or comments as long as the questions are easy and the comments are pleasant.
Jack, anything?
We had a great conversation. As a matter of fact, she even gave me a few tips on Portugal.
Yeah, I did.
At the end of it. But no, she has a key role in town, and all that I've heard from anyone is that you're doing a very effective job, and thank you from the people around me. And I didn't end up with any serious questions. It seemed like a very standard, straightforward budget, and much of it gets reimbursed by the state in any case.
Correct. Thank you very much for your kind words.
So I have a question. I guess Jack kind of answered it, saying a lot of it gets reimbursed by the state anyways, but have we seen an increase in, veterans come in for assistance over the last year, or has it more or less stayed the same or anything like that?
We have seen an increase of veterans coming in asking for the Chapter 115 program. However, because that program is like a last resort, it is for indigent veterans. A lot of the veterans who applied did not meet the criteria. So they had more than $2,500 in the bank, or their income was a little too high. So we did see an increase in applications, but there was only 2 new applicants who we accepted into the program. Any other questions, comments? I want to talk about how great I'm doing.
Wonderful job.
Dennis.
But it looks like Dennis has a.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a real tough question for you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed meeting you, and I was extremely impressed with the depth and breadth of the programs you offer to our veterans in a
Thank you.
really exemplary fashion.
I appreciate that very much. Thank
You
you.
know what the town did for our veterans, and I think you're in good hands with you, Ally.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. You hear that, Mr. Johns? They like me too.
I'm sorry, Mike. We couldn't see you. I don't know what you said.
She's doing a terrific job, and we're very proud of her.
Well, I'm very lucky to be here. I love this town. Oh, I do want to mention this. It's a little off topic, but I just want the community and the people who are watching to know what kind of community that you are living in. I had a veteran come to me and donate 3 100 gallons of oil to any veteran that will need it who heats their home with oil. He made me swear up and down that he does not want recognition. I promised him he would remain anonymous, but 3 100 gallons of oil. And it just blew me away. So he's watching now. I know he is. I just want him to know that we appreciate it. And the 3 veterans who got the oil appreciate it very much also.
So, Ellie, not to put you on the spot, I know a couple of years ago at one of the town meetings, you mentioned something at the town hall. You said something about you might consider moving to Foxborough. So, did you move to Foxborough?
No, I'm still here in Taunton. I'm looking though. I have a big family, so as soon as I find a place that can accommodate 4 kids and my husband and I, and a grandbaby on the way, I'm gone.
Wow.
I'm in Foxborough.
Not to put added pressure on you, but
Yeah, no pressure. My husband's listening, so I'm kind of giving him the elbow, like let's go.
Any further questions for Ellie? Anyone? I think we're good. So if we have any follow-up questions, we know where to find you. But
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the next is the Recreation Department, and I'm looking for Deb. Let me see. I don't see her sign on to Zoom yet. So, hey, Deb, if you
on.
Okay. Deb, can you hear or see us? Oh, hi. Well, Deb, welcome. And I know we're running a couple minutes early, so if you're not ready, that's fine. But did someone say she's on?
Yes, Heather Harding will be, I believe she chairs the board, the recreation board.
Okay.
And she's representing the recreation department.
Thank you, Jack. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
Welcome.
How are you?
Good.
Renee is on. Deb is on somewhere, but I can't.
That's fine.
Hear her. But Renee is on no video, but she's on the call, and she can go ahead and give you the update. She is the assistant director for the recreation department. So Renee, you're up. You have to unmute though.
Hi, Renee. You need to unmute your phone or iPad or computer. I can see her online, but that's okay. Well, Heather, I know we are running a few minutes early, so if you want to talk to us, you have anything you want to, hey, hi, Deb, I see you just joined the meeting. So we are running a few minutes early today, so if you're ready, we will let you present your budget.
Deb, you got to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Renee. Yeah, Renee, we can hear you. There you are.
All right, here I am. Sorry.
That's okay.
Here I am.
Heather, we thought we would be practicing with the team like in Hollywood before, now that we're on Zoom.
Crazy.
Just kidding.
Crazy. Go ahead, Renee, you're up. Or Deb, either one of you.
Can you hear me, Heather?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Hi, AdCom. Nice seeing you all. As you know, this is the recreation budget time, and Renee and Heather and I have been working hard on it because COVID really impacted us in an extremely negative way since the start of it back in March. Our presentation isn't as formal as it might be because we're down 1.5 staff members. I'm working full-time and Renee is working half-time, and we had to let Heidi go altogether. All of our salaries, with the exception of mine, are paid through revolving. When revolving stopped receiving funds as a result of the COVID and our lack of ability to run programs, our revolving fund took an extreme financial hit. Thus, the first thing we had to do was look at staffing and reduce that to a level that still allowed us to operate, but operate certainly in a much different manner. The whole COVID started us pivoting in the fall, in the spring, because we could not offer our traditional programming or pretty much any programming at all. We weren't able to offer our summer camp, which is our biggest revenue maker. We weren't able to offer spring programs, all of which provide us with revenue, and all of which is extremely important to feed the revolving account. So we lost programming in the summer, lost revenue. We lost the whole entire booth program for the summer, lost revenue. We were able to start building up programming on a small scale in the fall because we had to follow the state guidelines. Through Renee's hard work and ingenuity, we brought back the sporting programs that we could. And we had to also work around the fact that we had no indoor facilities to use, so we were strictly operating outside. So then the winter and the fall and the winter come, and we're back where we were in March with the inability to operate inside. Our programming was pretty much 0 to none. Through Halloween, we did well. And then after that, we were, again, not bringing in any revolving funds with the exception of Mill Street revolving because we were doing classes down there plus some rentals. And we had the log cabin income still maintaining its monthly payments. So now from pivoting to rebuilding is where we are now. We're offering all sorts of spring programs, all sorts of spring family programs, children programs. I just got good news from Renee that we have a couple of adult instructors that enable us to offer adult programming, and that will all start in April. Again, staying outside because of the schools, not unwillingness, but their inability to have us inside running our typical yearly adult programming. We are fully committed to running a summer program this summer, which will again bring in needed revenue. But revenue isn't the only thing that we're concerned about. We're also concerned about staying vital in the community, offering programming that provides people with safe, inexpensive places to go and things to do, as well as paying attention to the societal impacts that the COVID had. And we'd like to be in the forefront of taking care of people who are looking for sports programs that allow them to socialize while maintaining our rentals, maintaining the fields, maintaining all of our buildings. Our tagline in the past has always been, we do a lot with a little. And right now we're trying to maintain that, but we're doing a lot with extremely little. We're not asking for anything from the AdCom. Our one line is my salary. We are doing some inventive financing in order to maintain Renee, who is so critical to the operation.
Thank you. And any questions for that? No. Jack? Nothing?
I have a question. I thought I heard Bill Keegan say that, Renee, are you splitting time in the town office as well?
I am. I'm working 20 hours up in accounting and 20 hours with recreation.
Okay. Will that help recreation in the future at all? Is that training for you at all, or is that just the way to get?
It has helped quite a bit. I've learned how to use the Munis system, which is the system that we use. It has helped us. It's going to help me with our invoices, our billing, the accounts payable. It has helped me. I can do payroll now. I've learned so much more than I ever thought that I would. So yes, it has helped quite a bit.
Awesome. It's great to hear.
Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that a little bit as well, if you like.
Absolutely, Mike.
So back in the spring, when we did have a discussion between administration and the recreation staff and the chairman, Heather, we were looking at the revolving funds going down and programs eliminated, and what were we going to do? Well, at that same time, we were also looking to hire a half-time position in our accounting department, which had been funded. It was a need that we had identified, and we knew that Renee had good skills in that area with use of Munis, handling accounting, and so we called a meeting together and to see instead of having to lay her off. Or furlough, reduce her hours, we were able to, to put her to work, get her some training, fill a need that we required. And so it really was an opportune moment. And she's been very helpful in town hall in supporting the accounting division. And it's been, it's been helpful to her in the recreation department, as you alluded to. Because I think that I fear that had we not been able or had not had that opportunity, that we may have lost Renee because she wanted, in fact, needed full-time employment, and that was not the only reason that we did it. We had a need within town, so it was very opportune. And as she said, she's learned a lot, and I'm getting that from the folks in accounting, from the finance director, that she's contributing and learning, and what she's learning, she's going to bring back in spades.
Absolutely.
Very good, Mike. Thank you. I think, Deb, you flawed us. We have no questions for you. Usually we have a lot of questions, but tonight everybody's quiet.
Well, that's a good thing then.
It's a good thing. It is a good thing.
I hope that it helps you out.
Yes, it's a very good thing, very informative. And if we don't have any more questions, I think I'm just going to thank you for coming in. Thank you, Renee, Heather, and you for coming in.
Thank you.
If we have any questions, we know where to find you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. Good night. Wow. We are way ahead of schedule. I'm impressed. So I guess a couple housekeeping things we'll talk now. Next week is when all the town will close the warrant articles for this annual meeting. And right now we're looking at maybe 21 articles to review, give or take. So we're going to be busy in March. There's going to be a lot of things going on. We have a lot of meetings pretty much all set up. And my goal is to have maybe 6 or 7, no more than 6 or 7 articles a night, because if we have too many, we'll never get it done, and we will be burned out. So once I get the articles, I will forward to everyone. I'll work with Bill Keegan to come up with a plan, to kind of balance easy ones and hard ones, so we can kind of finish 6 or 7. That's the first thing. Second thing, I just want to clarify. I know in the beginning when you guys voted on the minutes, I'm just gonna make sure the minutes reflect that 9 people voted yes and 2 abstained. That would be Sharon and Brian, because you guys weren't here last week. So I'll make sure the minutes will reflect that. And then next Tuesday is the Board of Selectmen meeting. That's when the warrant articles will be presented. So if you want to, check the agenda and find out what time it's presented, they are pretty good. They are right on time. So if it says 7:05, it's pretty much 7:05 is when they will talk about the articles. I know Mike is cracking the whip. That's it. Time's up. Next. So they're pretty good. And then next week we have 7 different departments coming, 7 department heads. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. It might run a few minutes longer, but we do have 7, and we should be able to get through it. So I think I've had everything I want to tell you. So do you have anything you want to add on? Any items to bring forward for discussion? General items?
Yeah, I have a general question only because it just kind of popped into my mind. We just heard from the rec department saying, they had to lay somebody off and reduce Renee's time. I worked with the school department, which is a little different, but as far as I know, they're the only ones that had to lay anyone off in the last year. Did anyone else hear anything differently? I don't know if that's good
Mike,
to hear or bad to hear or whatever, but that's
Mike,
the first only layoffs I've heard of so far.
Mike, can you address that question?
Sure, I can speak to that. So we remain a very consistent, predictable organization. We hire good people. We try to maintain them. We try to promote from within, and we try to develop folks. And when we hire them, we try in general to bring them in from the bottom. In other words, we try to hire within the first 3 steps. Step 1 when possible. Sometimes when we get to some of the department head positions, especially when you talk about something like building commissioner, for example, that's a lot tougher to hire. And so we can't hire somebody at step 1 because we're competing with a lot of communities. So getting to your question though, we very much do not want to lay off. I mean, we are, Mark Craig talked earlier this evening about his program being one of the very few in the Commonwealth that's been running throughout. He's had his staff on hand. You heard Manny talk about the library staff being one of the first, at least in our region, to be serving patrons, first curbside, and then actually opening the doors again on July 22nd. In Town Hall, we opened our doors back up to the public right after the 4th of July weekend. So I'm giving you the long answer, but I want to give you the complete answer. So we have had no reduction in services. We have worked very hard to continue to provide all the public safety, all the public works, all of the administrative, as well as human services and other services. We've gotten responses that folks in town have been very pleased that we've gone above and beyond to do the best we can to keep our doors open and to provide those services. So back to the beginning of my comments, I talked about we work very hard to be a consistent, predictable organization. There are organizations out there, especially ones who have found themselves in a very bad position, maybe because of poor planning or maybe just that they're not as fortunate as we are, who've had to do layoffs. And what that does is when they're going to get to a position where they need those people back again, and there's it's likely that those folks would have found other places to go. So then you're back into rehiring, retraining, rebuilding, and putting your organization back together again. We like our budgeting to be stable. We like our people to be that same sort of on that same pathway. So we don't want to see ridges and troughs. And so we have found the need to keep the people. across the school and town side, and we've been able to keep them very busy. At our slowest time, which was when we had to close the doors in town hall, in the Council on Aging, in recreation, and in the library, we put our folks to work at putting the plans together to what would it take to reopen safely, following the state guidelines, and also putting together succession planning. One of the things that you may have heard us speaking about on several occasions is we want every employee to have a succession binder, something that we've called a truck binder. Somebody walks out of the building, they get run over by a truck. We want, God forbid, but we want that replacement to come in, be able to open up a binder and see what that person was doing, who their contacts were, what their responsibilities were, what their budget looked like, soup to nuts. And at our slowest time back in March and April, that's what we had our folks doing, was actually putting those binders together. Now, police officers, firefighters who weren't in a leadership role, laborers in water and public works, well, they were out carrying on their duties, and they didn't have to put together those sort of binders. But all of our managerial, executive, supervisor, and other administrative staff, that was the expectation, that we put together these turnover binders so that our organization continue to succeed and proceed forward in a smooth, orderly fashion and be predictable, as I said. I hope that helps to answer your question.
Jack?
Yeah.
One additional perspective on this, Dan, is at this time last year, the various department managers were asking for, I'll say, half a dozen new hires. I don't remember the exact numbers. Bill cut some of them to half-time and so forth. And eventually, once COVID got serious in the middle of March, they all went out. So instead of layoffs, we did not entertain at town meeting additional hires. So that's another side of the same coin.
Yeah, and I guess kind of where I was going with this is, and that's a very good point, Jack. I think where I was going was, for anyone watching or for town's greater knowledge, this was the first layoff I had heard of due to COVID. And, to your point, Jack, I guess that hasn't been a broader issue because of the work we did last spring to make sure there were no more of those positions available. And, to Mike's point, staying consistent, they didn't bring on anyone they didn't need. They didn't have to lay anybody off, So I guess I'm just trying to, so we don't have to answer more questions at town meeting, bring up this point now, why weren't there more layoffs? There's, X amount of layoffs out in business. Why didn't we have the same effect on the town? And these are the reasons why. And so I guess, for everyone watching, that'll be important for them to think about when we go to town meeting.
Right. And you heard that, Debbie talk about, the revolving funds not being there. That's only half of the picture with the recreation and why we found it necessary to let someone go. In fact, cut 1.5 positions. So part of it was, the funds weren't there. Well, the other thing is the need wasn't there because within state guidelines, we could not run any youth programs. Whereas with the Council on Aging and Human Services, they got very, very busy on the human services side, serving, populations of all ages. In the library, you heard how they were able to pivot and still serve, some of their critical services. Recreation, we tried very hard, but within the state guidelines, we just weren't able to offer programs. So the money wasn't there, but also the need wasn't there.
Brad? I think Brad has.
Yeah, so I have a question. Obviously, I'm, obviously a freshman on this board, so I'm going to ask a question that may be controversial, and you might say, no, that's not doable. When I look at all the different budgets and departments these last few weeks, is it kind of like salaries is never something that can be questioned? like they set their salaries and not negotiated, even during this downtime? Or is that like a taboo even to mention it? Because it kind of says like salaries are salaries, almost like you can't even talk about the salaries, right?
Well, Brad, real quick, I know you've heard this a bunch of times already, but a lot of them are union contracts. A lot of, so a lot of those they're negotiable every 3 years, but realistically, they're non-negotiable once you get there.
Okay. And the other thing I've noticed from a lot of different budgets I've been looking at these last few weeks, it seems like the town manager will set, like, am I correct, like a 2.5% increase that they can take? Where I'm just wondering what other towns have been doing during these times, these economic downturns a little bit. Is that something that most towns still have an increase in their budgets they're able to take? Again, these might be questions that are just kind of idiotic, but it's just something on my mind when I was reading it. Not sure who could answer that one. So when the town manager said, do they give like a 2.5% leeway that they can increase their budgets? Or is it just seems like every budget almost I'm looking at, I mean, most, not every, that they're all having this 2.5% increase?
Sure. So I can answer that if you like, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. So at the very start of the budget season, the guidance comes actually from the Selectment. And so the finance director and the town manager go in and they meet with the Selectmen. I'm going to give it to you just in a simple nutshell. And they present options to the Board of Selectmen. And, in the very simplest forms, there's level services, there's level funding or there's, level funding, something better than level services. So level funding means you're going to have a decrease in services because of inflation. Level services means you're going to have some increase in the budget to maintain the same services that you have. And in many years, you're looking for some increases in services in some areas. So it's actually not the town manager that decides the 2.5%. He and the finance director, can make recommendations, but it's actually the Board of Selectmen that take a vote. And the vote was to keep the budget to 2.5% overall. Mm-hmm. And so that from that, the guidance from the town manager to the department heads was, in order to meet that bottom line of 2.5%, my goal to all of you is to keep your budget at 2.5%. And some were a little more, some you saw this evening were a little, and some actually substantially less.
Okay. Thank you.
Bernard.
Yes, and actually, just complimenting what Dan started to probably inquire into, and Brad, being fairly new, did elaborate on. I just would like to reiterate that perhaps it's another way to look at this. I mean, again, I go back to, at the end of the day, we have an $80+ million budget, one way or another, right? 2.5% of it is $2 million. In 5 years, we're going to be over $90 million. My point is that when Dan and Brian were asking basically the key questions, how is this budget constructed? At the end of the day, when we have mostly negotiated union contracts, signed agreements, doesn't matter how much we talk about step, non-step, and everything else, I will dare to say that over 80% of our budget is basically not touchable in terms of people and also their pension and benefits that go on with it. So big picture, we're only talking about perhaps 20% we can touch, but a lot of it cannot be touched. Why? Because we'll see it next week. A lot of it has to do with the debt service and so on. These are fixed dollars. The point being is that I always go back to what I always said for the past 5 years. Very much like a business, unless you have real restructuring potential improvements, it's very challenging to basically, as long as we're talking about trying to cut dollars here and there, but really it's very challenging to basically talk about significant cost changes. Now, we may have some other revenues that we may look into, but in a way, I'm happy to see that Brad as a freshman, and Brad, hopefully you don't take it that badly using the word freshman, but he's asking all these key questions. Over the years, we'll find out that I go back to, as long as we have negotiated signed contracts, either at the top level or with everybody else, I would love actually to see out of, let's call it 100 employees we have in town, how many are part of a union, how many have contracts from top to bottom, and if it's, let's say, 7.5 out of 10 employees, that will tell it all. I know we always try to go back to basically try to see how we can be more efficient, but very much like any business, it would take restructure to make it things more efficient. But as long as we go every year the way we do and we have signed contracts at all levels, we're going to always go back to where we are. We'll barely be able to move the equivalent of 5% of that budget. So that's always my take every year. So it's good to have inquiry into every department, but unless really we want to realistically look at every single department and we agree on what can be touched versus not touched, we will always be quote unquote surprised that over 5 plus 10 years, we'll go over $10 million plus. Again, I go back, by year 7 to today, we'll be over $100 million budget. Hopefully we'll get the revenue for it, but it's good that and that's why I'm hoping that more people can be watching those programs, because it's very easy to tell what can be moved. And by the way, Mike, I really appreciate your point as far as the good job we do in town in terms of making sure we are on budget. But again, this is simple math. 2.5% of a large number will be surprised in 5 years. And what I'm hoping is that in 5 years, when the town resident will be asking outcome, what were we doing to let the budget go for $100 million? Answer to everyone is, please come to town meeting. Please watch all these programs to understand what makes government work and what makes the budget works. That's my take.
It's there is no such thing as untouchable. The town meeting, and by extension, the advisory committee, can act on the total of a salary budget. They can't change the salary of an individual, but the total. So if the town, through its board of selectmen, chooses services to be reduced, then that would be one option. That turns out not to be the option that our elected leaders have chosen.
Jack, to your point, I couldn't agree with you more, but if we were to really address that topic, right? What makes up the biggest amount of the budget is the school, right? Which has its own board. If you look at the whole 80 plus million we spend, if you account into healthcare and pension, I will dare to say that it's roughly 55 cents to 6 cents to that dollar. Now, we all know that it's important to have a very good school system for all the reasons we know. We all want one day that our home values, there are major implications into everything that I'm trying to say. My point is that if we all want to be realistic, we want to have very good services. All these things cost money. We understand why. My point is that running a town is not like running a private business. We don't have the luxury of just basically playing with a P&L, as I call it. I think that it's important that, again, I go back to, if we have 100 employees in town, understand how many of them are have contracts and so on. And Jack, to your point, I understand that things can be touched, but realistically, the touch also would mean some painful medicine. And I think that's where I'll dare to say where politics come into play. So call it less than 10% we can really spend all the time to inquiry. I'm inviting more people from the town to really understand how government works. Without that, we're gonna always be in that catch-22 that 5 years from now is how did we ever spend that much money? That's my take.
Mr. Chairman, could I offer one more perspective?
Absolutely, Mike.
So it's delightful to me to listen to the advisory committee because this evening, for instance, while you're looking at the budget and while you're questioning some of the numbers, you're also asking questions like I heard Dennis ask a couple of times and Jack as well. Are you sure you have enough money in that line for next year to cover, based on this, that, or the other thing? So I used to serve on a finance committee. I live in Rentham, and given my current position, I'm not allowed to serve on the finance committee in another community anymore. But a finance committee is very different than an advisory committee because we only looked at financial articles and only financial aspects. Whereas the advisory committee, you have all of that, plus you're looking at in addition to the efficiency, you're also looking at the effectiveness. You are looking at what's best for the community is, okay, if we're, if as you mentioned, if 80%, let's say that's a number, is untouchable, or if 95% or more of the employees in town are under contracts, then how do we make substantial change? And I'll go to Bernard's comment about structure, and that's where we have to look at where do we get more, and that's where we empowered our department heads to look, not only at ways to be efficient, but also how are you going to provide better services to more people, and how are you going to reach out for more grant opportunities? And we see it in our police and fire services as well as our DPW. They're digging deep to look at what are ways that we can better serve the community. And I look at just roads, for instance. Back before we had a DPW, when water and highway and tree and parks, when they were all separate, you would see the roads get paved, and then a year or two later, the roads get dug up down the middle to put new water mains down them because we weren't consolidated. We didn't have that structure, as Bernard mentioned. So we might be spending as much money or actually more in our DPW department, but we have better roads, and we aren't wasting. We aren't ripping up roads to put in water mains where we just paved them 2 years prior. That was a great structural change that the town made that didn't necessarily save us money short term, but long term, it's made us that much better. And we're seeing that sort of a move in human services and other areas, just to provide better.
Mike, you make a point of looking for grants and the like, which is all well and good. However, that's a double-edged sword. For example, we have had the 3 firemen salaries paid in the last 3 years. Now, year 4 comes, we, the taxpayer of Foxborough, absorb those salaries. Now, it's being hidden by coming out of the ambulance fund, which could have been used for some other money. But in reality, we have added 3 firefighters' salaries, not 3 firefighters' salaries to our payroll as of this coming year.
Yeah, you are correct. And that's where when I was talking about earlier, this year you're seeing a a budget that's about 2.5%. I was careful to say, while this evening you saw some that came in with no increase. In fact, library with a decrease. We have had some with some increase, and fire department, to your point, Jack, is one because of those three. Because last year was the last year of that SAFER grant. Now we're paying the salary of those 3 firefighters, and we will moving forward. And so this year you're going to see a 6% increase in that department budget, and that's where we had to work real hard, knowing that was coming up, to make sure that the other budgets were given some balance, so that the bottom line was meeting the expectations of the selectmen and not exceeding that 2.5%. But you make a very good point, Jack.
Bernard, go ahead.
Actually, complementing what Jack mentioned, one of the, at least for me, experience that I really enjoyed over the years, I always had asked that question to myself, is why my property taxes were going up every year. But by being part of the advisory committee, it helped me understand basically how, between the reassessment being done or the rates going up, understanding how property taxes funding most of the sources of revenue help offset those increases we just talked about in expenses. But I go back to that, and I go back to, again, my encouragement to have much more of our residents to be part of this process, because the only question sometimes I hear from the resident is, why are property taxes going up? It's not just a function of the mechanism on how it's done in terms of, again, reassesses the home values and the technical thing of the rates, but it's also funding those increased expenses every year. And it goes back to what we talked about. We are very privileged to live in such a good town. There is a price for that. Yes, we are all happy that our so-called home equities go up, but we can't eat equity. It's all about cash flow. So on behalf of the residents, I'm hoping that many more residents can be part of the process to understand how our town works. Without that, we will always have those what I call distractors who are talking about few things that here's what we need to do to, let's say, manage free cash. Here's what, but the key is really understand why our budgets made the way they are at a government level. Without that, we'll always be talking about separate subject again, like selfishly, why am I paying much more taxes? I don't have the cash to pay. That's what I'm trying to drive at.
Bernard, that would start with the townspeople attending a selectmen's meeting and voicing their concern, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, if the select board does not vote to maintain that 2.5% increase, we're not going to see the increase in salaries, right? So the only way this whole thing starts is if they decide to keep the budget flat, or if the town can't pay the bills anymore, right? I guess my point being is that, you know, we've been, we've benefited from Foxborough having, you know, enough money to pay the bills and to continue to see these increases. I don't think anything changes until that piece changes, right? Either the public stands up and they say, look, you know, we're tired of 2.5% increases, or if all of a sudden we can't pay, right? Those are the only two things that I think would change any of this.
Sorry, if I missed,
yeah.
Brian, I could not agree with you more. I would say over the years, the real outcome is the number of residents attend town meeting, and it says it all. So in that sense, you're correct. Unless we have a better participation rate in terms of people being interested in how our town is being run, we're going to always have those one-offs. Question again, why our taxes are up, why free cash is less than last year, blah, 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 in my opinion. The need to understand how our town works is critical. Without that, we will always, unfortunately, have to answer questions that are important, but not being asked in the context of understanding what I call the whole P&L and balance sheet of the town.
Yeah, I just think a lot of the taxpayers feel powerless in the whole thing, but it turns out that, you know, if you attend those select board meetings or if you attend town meeting, you probably can impact change.
Agreed.
Can I switch gears real quick? Does anyone have anything left, you know, for this conversation? Tom, I just wanted to kind of regroup on Southeastern and where we stand on that. Is there any more information you're looking for? Is there anything else, you know, I can help with? I know I'm not the liaison to Southeastern by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, as working with the school committee this year, I just figure due diligence to offer, you know, at least bring it up.
Oh, sure. I will be in touch with Steve tomorrow. I did not have a chance today to catch up with after their meeting yesterday. I don't know if there was any actual documentation or any anything printed from their decision. I figured I'd give them another 24 hours to have anything that they voted on last night to be presentable to bring back to here. Hopefully I can have some of that. I can distribute it, email to everybody in the committee by next week so we could actually discuss that. But from my impression here, and I spoke to actual Michael today with regards to since they're not on a line item for the school committee, it's on an administrative budget plan. I also asked him about Norfolk Aggie because I didn't see that in the budget book either, and just trying to get a sense of what we are on enrollments and what the process is actually for determining the amount that the town is expected to contribute, whether it's on a baseline plus each additional student or whether it's strictly just per student, and whether or not there are any mandated surcharges, anything to accommodate for COVID in the past year, to reflect that 30% increase or so from Southeast Regional. I think Michael today, you said there didn't look like there was anything from Norfolk because maybe we didn't have anybody enrolled, but we're going to find out about that. But I can probably have enough information next week to at least give everybody a ground level understanding as to how the town is being assessed for our students that enroll outside of our school, our town, our public schools.
So
John,
I'm not sure if you saw the email that I forwarded to you this afternoon, Tom, after we spoke. But I did go down and speak with George on that subject as far as the Norfolk Aggie and Southeast Regional. And Larry had asked him the same question. So he had sent a response to Larry. So I just forwarded, I asked him to forward it to me, and then I forwarded it to you. And it did, it did talk about the Aggie not being in there because that comes directly off the cherry sheet. And then Southeast Regional is a per student charge. But it would be better for you to actually look at the finance director's explanation because it would be better than mine. I know he's on the call tonight or on this. If you had further questions on that, or maybe it's better for next week.
Yeah,
but,
I just checked your email. It said I think your item there said that the Norfolk Aggie is under county assessments, but I don't know if that's broken down by individual assessments or if it's just one big lump sum. Is that in the budget book as a separate line item or a separate category budget department?
Hi, Mike or Larry, you want me to answer that?
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. With the Norfolk Aggie, we get a bill every year, and they won't list who's who on there because I guess it's privileged information. Last year, we got a bill that is taken directly out of the state assessments. Okay, so Marie put on the book, aside from the budget, there are a bunch of state assessments, i.e. the charges from the cherry sheet. It's built into those charges there. That's where that money is coming out. It's not part of the budget that we're voting on. The the amount last year, there were 12 students that came, and then we get assessed by the agricultural school, and it comes out of that state assessments. Okay. Now, switching gears back to the Southeastern Regional School, they go through a process on an annual basis, very much like what we're doing right now. They have to set a budget for the year. And their budget includes everything from building new buildings, just like we do, to, financing their normal operating procedures. Last year, the reason for the increase was twofold. First, they ended up building, or bonding, I should say, for a new construction on the school. That raised the assessment because, of course, our portion now is going to take into account the bonding, just like the town has to take into account the bonding for whatever we've done over here. Secondly, there was an increase in the student population. So what they did is they came out of the gate, they did their budget up, and normally what they will do on any normal year is they usually come in and they'll give a quick presentation before the Board of Selectmen, so it's on TV, and people can see what it is. And I've found in the past, this isn't the first time I've worked with them in East Bridgewater as well. And they put forth a very efficient and very informative presentation.
Yep.
And based on that, they then say, okay, well, how many students do you have? And this is your assessment. Okay. And this like 10 or 11 or 12 towns, I believe, that are involved with it. The final piece is last year when we came in, they gave us the assessment, and then 3 or 4 months after the town meeting was over, they lowered the assessment. Now, why did that happen? Well, for the same reason that when we came out of the gate last year and we were doing our bonding, until the date of the bonding, you don't know what you're going to be paying for your interest rate or what you're going to be paying for the entire bonding. So when we came in, we had an estimate done up by Hilltop, and then ultimately when we went out to bond, the estimate came in at, I think they said it was like the lowest since 1851 or something to that effect. Well, the same thing happened with the school. So they came out of the gate, they built their budget, and they had their estimate built into it. And then they went out to bond sometime after the end of the fiscal year. And when all was said and done, it dropped. And of course, they lowered the assessment for all the towns. So essentially, what you've got is you've got two different organizations creating up a budget just like we are. And most of the time, you will not see those assessments come in until sometime towards March, okay, because they have to do their budget like we are. And then we come in high. Last year, this year we're assuming a 7.5% increase, simply because that's what it was last year. We're hoping that's high. And then ultimately, if it comes in lower, then we lower it and we reduce the amount of cash that we need to do the budget with. If it comes in higher, then we got to go searching around for more money. The one thing that's interesting is that when you are a member of this group, in order to not pay the assessment or get it lowered, you have to have a majority of the towns who are involved with it come in and say, I don't want to pay that. And the funny part about it is that as the years have gone by, certain towns will go up and others will go down. And in the year that the towns that went up, they kind of get up in arms and they say, geez, I think we should come back and see if we can lower the assessment. But then the ones that didn't go up don't care and they don't want any part of it. Then the next year, somebody else goes up and the others go down and then they don't want any part of it. So I haven't in 30 years since I've been doing it, and I've been involved with them for 30 years in the other town. I don't think that there's ever been a time that they ever came back and reduced it. The only thing that I'll finally leave with you is that the gentleman who does do the budget for the Southeast, and I can't say enough about, he's extremely articulate. He's very good, at what he does, and his presentation is usually spot on and very informative. And I think that's about all I can say about it. But ultimately, that's where we are. And so the other one there, the agricultural, it's not even a line that you're voting on. It's coming out of the state assessments.
Okay.
Hey, George, this is all very good. I think if we're gonna proceed, we'll table it for another meeting, and we'll invite you, and we can go in detail. I just want to move on, and I think you gave us enough information. We have an idea how the assessment works, but I'm sure we all have, Tom or a few other people might have follow-up questions. So at some point, maybe we'll put all the questions together, email it to you, and then we can talk at the next meeting. But I think what you gave us tonight is probably 99% of what we need to know. So we'll regroup and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, very good.
All right, thank you. All right, any further discussion on general items we can talk about? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Actually, we'll raise our hand. Okay, it's 10. The 10 of us, so 10 people voted yes. All right. Good night. See you next week.
Good night. Take care.
Good night, Mike.